Hi, friends. Welcome today to we're going to call it a kind of an abbreviated episode.
Mm.
Liz and I are feeling like we don't exactly feel the time is appropriate to do a let's all feel better. So Liz came up with let's all feel, because that's what we need to be doing right now. As always, I'm Kalista Parrish.
I'm Liz Kiefer, and
And
yes,
yeah, and today we just wanted to kind of check in. We realized that for most of our episodes, we like to be the voice of knowledge, and we like to, culminate things so that we all wind up feeling better and feel good about ourselves. And this isn't the time for that. This is a time where we have to sit in our uncomfortableness and realize that the system that is so broken in our world right now needs our attention, but we're struggling with how best to do that.
right. And I know for me, the most important action I can take is to first just to commit to taking just like a continuous examination
Yeah.
of where white privilege shows up in my life. Where are the blind spots where I don't even see it?
Right. I mean, the fact that we get to sit here and talk about white privilege and racism is privilege in itself.
Yeah.
Instead of having to, having that time to try and figure out what's our best action, instead of having our house be on fire. Metaphorically, that that but yes, identifying our privilege, I think, is a really, really terrific first step.
Well, the awareness it's committing to be willing to look at everything, and I'm committed to being called out on it but when I don't see it. And boy, I've got some young people around me that are doing a very good job with that, and I'm grateful. It's uncomfortable, and it's supposed to be uncomfortable because it's about learning to sit in the discomfort and learning to um, just stop resisting that. Like, it's not supposed to feel.
Yeah, and that's why we felt today was not about solving anything. I feel like we
Right.
very often with this podcast try and solve issues that either we're having or other people may be having, and this isn't ours to solve exactly, but this also isn't a time for solving. This is a time for really going through
And going deeper.
Yeah.
There's it's a very complicated. It's so complicated. It ripples out into everything. But until we become aware and acknowledge, take responsibility, be willing to take responsibility, be willing to have difficult conversations. I'm going through all of that right now. It's I can only take action from that place. I have to first be aware of what's happening. So it's
Well, no, we very often feel like I'm not a racist. You have that platform, and then you start to really look at things. And because of the systemic level of this, that it's systemic in all of us, that you go,
of course, and you're born into something,
yeah.
and you don't even realize, know, where that privilege shows up. I mean, I didn't even have a real clue about it until I became a parent. And then I realized, oh, wait a second. My parenting is a completely different situation than my Black friends that who have to have a completely different conversation with their son when he's of age.
Yeah.
And I'm telling mine to go out in the world and be anything you want, and they're saying, no, you got to protect yourself, and you got to learn how to avoid these situations. And it's just
so that every Black parent knows what the talk means, whereas most white people think that that means it's sex. No.
Right.
It's about how the world views you, and that's our privilege right there. Is that we don't have to necessarily tell our children, this is how the world is afraid of you. This is how the world thinks of you, sees you. So, right there, that's just.
Right. And that was the most important education in my life. That was the first time I was like, oh, I was overwhelmed with empathetic distress of, oh, if I were a Black mother right now, I'd be worrying about sending my son off to school. Oh, I can't even imagine. And that's when it just began to creep into my consciousness that, oh my God, where I have this privilege, the fact that I don't have to worry about this on a daily basis. This is just wrong. And I would even talk to that's how I started addressing racism with my own kids, saying, you need to understand that we're having a completely different conversation than people we know. My wonderful mentor of 20 years, my spiritual teacher, Fred King, beautiful, and African-American, his whole, he's having a different conversation with his grandkids that are the same age as my kids. And that was just the beginning of my education, just the beginning of having a glimpse. And, it continues, but I am committed to learning and listening, and listening and learning and unlearning.
Yeah, no, I know both of us have been trying to do reading and talking with people, and we will include some of our sources, because we're gonna just do that now. So, say a couple of the things that we've been that have been most impactful, can I say, to us right now, things that that we're doing that we'd like to share with all of you, because they might be impactful to you as well. Yes, I mean, one of them is there's a website, I guess a group actually, that called White No Nonsense Roundup, and I really like what they have to say. They have a really great article about getting involved as white people, and there's concrete things you can actually physically do, and obviously donate and protest and all that, but they've got some really great things that you wouldn't necessarily think about straight off. So I will include that in our description of this podcast, this episode. And I know that you've been reading some
wonderful books. I'm reading White Fragility, which is incredibly educational, and I think that's important for everybody to read. And also this book, Between the World and Me. Oh, yeah. Yes, this is just heartbreaking.
Such amazing writing.
Yeah, and it's this open letter of this man, this Black man, to his 15-year-old son, about the realities of being growing up Black in America. Oh, it is heartbreaking.
And that should be required reading. I think.
Required reading, yeah. I'm also listening to the handbook of it's called White Supremacy and Me, and it's a handbook, and it's really, I believe it started out as an Instagram kind of challenge, just with prompts every day, just asking questions about looking at yourself, and where, just so you start to recognize where white privilege shows up, and what is white fragility, defining everything. And it's the same, it's now in an audiobook. I'm listening to it, and it's a prompt where I ask you questions every single day, and you have time to think about, and I ponder, and I do that while I'm walking every day, and that's powerful as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think as we're saying, and I don't mean sitting in it as a way of sitting back. I mean, sitting in it as a way of as a way of, oh man, well, I'm not a racist, but then you start thinking about these things and the systemic level at which this.
No, just assume you are. Yeah. I mean, that's what I am. I'm like, where is it?
Actually, yeah, I am. You're like, oh, frick. Yes, I said frick. But yeah, no, that, and to be an ally, is what we all, we all, you and I desire to be for our friends and for all people of color. And it's I think it really does. It starts with us identifying places where we are lacking, where we need to improve. And if we don't notice it, if you don't pay attention to it, then you're never going to learn from it.
Right. That's the mindfulness of this. You know, it's being mindful and recognizing it, and and so you can do something about it. Be part of a solution. But if you're ignorant of the information and of where it's showing up and how you're even complicit to it, you can't do anything about it. So that first step is so important, and that's what's being asked of all of us. And I'm honoring. I honor it. I am listening. I mean,
yeah, no, we try and stay out of politics and around here. I mean, with this podcast, not in my personal life, but in this podcast. But this is something that is different. That it's not politics. This is
not politics.
This is a broken system that we all need to help fix.
and you can't move forward with you have to feel it to heal it. That is very much a saying in all of my coaching that I have been learning and exposed to. But and feeling it means sitting in it and learning how to handle that discomfort, not pushing it away. That's privilege, to be able to go, I just don't want to deal with this.
Deal with that right now.
I'm tired. I'm just going to tune out. And it's like, no, sorry, no longer allowed to do that.
Yeah,
I know that's for me.
Yeah, for me too. I know it makes you realize how much of your white privilege you live in daily when you start to go, oh, I have to be uncomfortable here. I have to not be happy and not even seek the joy. It's not time for seeking the joy yet. It's as you say, you have to feel it to heal it. We really have to get into this before we can be healed, before we can feel better. And that's what we do here. You and I, we try, and you and your life in general is to heal, is to make things better. And this isn't ready for that yet. It's going to be a long process of healing. And I hope it is. I mean, I don't want it to be brushed away anymore. I don't want it to be, a few days of chanting and then we move on. Can't have that. So we will share with you our resources, and we want to thank you for always tuning in and listening to us. We're open to commenting on our Facebook and or website, or
Instagram
and letting us know if there's things that you'd like us to investigate for you. Delve deeper if you've missed a title, if we've forgotten to say something of what we've learned, or where we've learned something. Please reach out. And this is a time where we all should be talking with one another. And as we say, it's uncomfortable, but we got to do it.
Yeah. So this is our let's all feel.
Let's all feel. Yeah.
All feel.
Let's all feel. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Be safe.